Welcome to the Glow Code podcast. My name is Kate Dove and I'm your host. The Glow Code podcast is a collection of bite-sized conversations designed to help you step into your main character energy, glow up, and connect with your femininity. This podcast is for the woman who wants to radiate her beauty from the inside out and move through the world with authenticity. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Glow Code podcast. We skipped a week last week. We were going strong for 12 weeks there, and then a couple of weeks ago, I got sick, and for those of you listening who know me in person, you know that I never get sick. Like, I can be around 10 people who are sick and not catch anything. So I was sick a couple of weeks ago, and then last week I was feeling so much better, but I couldn't get through a sentence without coughing. So I was like, okay, you know what? It's all right, we'll skip a week and then we will come back. So here we are. I am honestly so grateful that this happened because I have this new momentum just rushing through me, this new fire, this new creativity, and I'm trying to figure that out and sort through it. But being sick really gave me the time to tap back into my intuition and just realize where I want to go in all areas of life. So I'm going to give you a backstory on this, and you might be like, why are you giving me a backstory on why you were sick? Well, because it has to do with what we are talking about today. So typically when we are experiencing emotions or sensations in our body, whether they are positive or negative, they are a reflection of our emotions. So a couple of weeks ago, I want to say the day before I started to feel the cold coming on, I had taken a workshop called Hot Rich Wifey by Taylor Carr. You can go follow her on Instagram. And the masterclass was about masculine energy and money. And I had taken classes like this in the past, and I had looked into this topic, studied it, embodied it, implied it, or not implied, applied it. But I just really felt drawn to it, especially with these new shifts that I've been making all year. Honestly, this has been a very big identity quantum leap for me this year. There were a lot of physical things that were amazing that happened, like releasing my books and experiencing abundance and joy from that. But the whole year, it's just been around identity, figuring out my desires, what I want, and how I move about the world. So in this masterclass, I recognized a pattern on a whole other level. And this is a pattern that I've talked about before on the podcast, the idea of capability and realizing how we are capable, what we are capable of, and feeling empowered in our lives in general. And I have also mentioned that I am finally working through this disassociation thing that I've had since I was a kid. Before all this, I've healed chronic constipation, I've healed vaginismus, I've moved through grief after losing my mom, like just all these things. But this was the one thing where I just didn't know what to do. So anyway, leading up until this workshop, I had already begun working through it. And I also realized that this idea and emotion of incapability was not only playing into that, which I was already aware of, but I realized that I was projecting it both onto myself and in areas of money and my relationship in terms of having like low expectations, and not low expectations of I'm not going to do this, or he's not going to do this, or it's not going to work out. But having this sort of predictability around situations where instead of imagining the highest outcome possible, I default to what is predictable. And we all do this in every area of life, but I began tracing back the experiences that I've had in my life where I was also projecting this and how that's showing up in my relationship now. So there were a couple of memories that came up for me with the people who raised me. So I was very well taken care of by my grandparents. And then with my dad, it was like a little bit complicated because he was in a very different place in his life compared to my grandparents, who had already established themselves very, very well. But I realized that as a teenager, I was projecting this thing of incapability onto him, of like, well, you can't do this for me and you can't do that for me. And that wasn't the case, but I was just a teenager who wanted to look cool and fit in and get new purses and have front row seats at sports games. And those were all things that I was getting from my grandparents, but not from him. And now I realize the logistics of the situation, obviously, but at the time that is not how my body perceived it. So I realized that I had carried a bit of that pattern into the expectations that I have around myself and with my partner, and just that whole ordeal. So next day, I'm feeling like I'm getting a cold. And then for a couple of days, I just had no energy at all. I was napping all day, watching movies, and that. So I checked in with my intuition, and my intuition said that 14% of me being a match to getting sick was a reflection. And the other percentage, I think it's 86%, was a detox. And that really pulled things into perspective for me, because we don't realize how much our body is a messenger for the things that we are going through. And while this was happening, I just allowed myself to detox and just start grieving this old identity and these old patterns. We all want the love, the money, the success, but it requires the death of what is not serving us and what is not working. There are so many videos I see out there where it's like how to romanticize your life, how to live a soft girl life, how to live a soft feminine lifestyle. And there are some good tips in there, like, for example, I always keep fresh flowers in the home. I love to dress in clothes that make me feel good. And those are things that are mentioned and can definitely help us to get a sense of a different atmosphere, but they're not embodiment. The most powerful way to romanticize our life is to romanticize our grief. This doesn't mean having a victim mentality, woe is me, identity, and this doesn't mean intentionally manifesting negative situations so that you grow. And I think this is a pattern that sometimes we can slip into, especially if you are a personal development junkie, because we can get into this pattern of trying to find the next problem to fix, trying to mend the next thing, when personal development is so much more than healing our wounds. It is also about expanding and reaching our potentials and playing with creation. What I mean by romanticizing your grief is getting really curious about the new relationship that awaits you On the other side of a challenge or an intense situation in your life, grieving is uncomfortable. Grieving is not this pretty, pink, feminine, aesthetic lifestyle that we see on Instagram and TikTok. That can be a byproduct. It can be an expression of an archetype that we really like to play with. But if you want to make room for more romance and pleasure in your life, you have to experience the rupture that occurs beforehand. So many of us are afraid to grieve an identity because that's how everybody knows us, and we don't want to feel isolated. Or we might feel afraid to grieve a lifestyle that was really fun at one point, but that is no longer serving us. And we are afraid of these things because we see them as reliable and predictable. Maybe in love, for example, you have had some bad dates and you feel like it's not working out. To your subconscious mind, it is so much safer to assume that you're only going to get more of that in the future, and that you're going to be in this loop of men are bad, women are bad, dating is horrible today, and whatever else is being said out there. And you can apply that to whatever area of life you are resonating with right now. Feminine energy is the beholder of chaos. Chaos not meaning unnecessary drama, but chaotic sex, chaotic creativity, chaotic expression, chaotic not being having no bounds, because that is what masculinity is for, to provide the container. But chaos meaning venturing into the unknown. Feminine energy is a very cyclical energy. There is constant death and rebirth. And within each death, there is unpredictability. And that is what we mean by chaos. When we are grieving, we are in the trenches of our own death. Even if we are grieving someone that passed in our life, we are also grieving the death of a relationship within ourselves, because maybe there was something about that relationship that felt incredibly fulfilling and nurturing. And from my experience, for me, that was my mom, a very nurturing, sweet, supportive energy and presence in my life. And while I was able to receive that through other people, it was a core relationship in my life. So not only did I have to grieve the relationship with her, but also recognize, what does that look like in my relationship with myself? Is there a way that I can replicate that in my body? And that is one of the most fascinating things that I find about relationships, is that they act as mirrors, and they can show us where we're not nurturing ourselves to the fullest in our own life, or it can show us what we want more of. So even if you are grieving someone who is no longer in your life, that does still come back to your own death and rebirth. It is so unpredictable, and there are days where you don't know if you're going to feel good and okay, or if you're just going to have a day where you need to take time to yourself and cry. There was a podcast episode that I listened to last week, and it was on the Ethereal Girl podcast. I feel like I'm just name dropping today, but we're going to roll with it because these are resources that have really helped me. And in the podcast, the host was talking about how we hold water in our bodies, and water holds memory. There are multiple studies that have been done on how emotions affect the formation of water and what that looks like. And when we cry, we are releasing data and we are releasing memory. So when we are doing the work on ourselves and we're trying to embody new beliefs and identities and new ways of being, it feels incredibly unsafe because we are wiping out all this old data and plugging in new information that we need to learn. When we are babies and toddlers, we do this automatically. From the ages of 0 to, I want to say 7, like 7 or 8, we are a sponge and we just take in everything around us. This is where we learn our core beliefs about love, about money, about success, about worthiness, and we can still do that as an adult. But now we have to go through that process of grieving in order to have the rebirth. Whether you want more love or pleasure or money or success in your life, there needs to be room for it. And we don't have room for it when we are living out these old identities and belief systems that are no longer serving us. It would be almost like if you were invited to a friend's home and let's say they told you, we're going to make dinner for you guys. You don't have to worry about anything. Just show up and it'll all be good. So you show up to their house and they're like, yeah, we actually don't have anything to make for you guys. And maybe the house is a mess and it's cluttered and nothing is clean, and maybe that person and their partner are like on work meetings when they're supposed to be spending time with you, and you're just like, I can come back another day, we can figure out another time. It's like that. You are telling the universe what you want, but you actually have to be prepared and open to welcome that thing in your life. Going back to this scenario, I don't know why I keep envisioning a couple in this scenario, but we're just gonna roll with it. In order for this couple to be prepared for you to come over for a nice dinner and get together, maybe they are going to throw out old food in the refrigerator that isn't good and buy new ingredients so they can make you something that's fresh. Maybe they're going to tidy up their shoes. Maybe they are going to decline another person's invitation for another event because they want to make room for and prioritize you. In order to do that, things needed to go. Even if it is as simple as vacuuming the floor, it's getting rid of dirt and grass and hair, which is something that I understand 100% because of this lion's mane of a head that I have, all this long dark hair that I have. So that is what you can equate it to as well. Something has to go in order to create a clean slate, in order to be open. In relationships, for example, let's say you started dating somebody who brought you a bouquet of flowers and they've planned a couple of dates and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing and I feel adored and I feel spoiled, but when is the other shoe going to drop? That is what we want to clean up. We want to clean up these expectations that we have around what we receive. And in order to do that, we have to grieve the previous experiences that caused us to be hurt. A lot of times what can happen is we have heartbreak and we're hurt, but we don't fully move through grief because we don't accept it and create room for love to still come into our life. Grief can make people feel incredibly bitter if it's not romanticized. if they're not seeing how they can continue to be open on the other side. Because chaos and rupture are just natural parts of life. Again, we don't have to intentionally manifest it in order to grow. We can grow through incredibly positive and empowering scenarios. But grief is your invitation to go inwards. Our heart can feel like a battlefield at times. So instead of just focusing on the battle, on the fight, on trying to survive, ask yourself what the point is. What is the end result that you are hoping to get after this? It's kind of eerie because as I'm talking about this, there are fire sirens going by, not my house, but a couple streets down. And when we are living in these old standards and identities, it can feel like there is a siren constantly going off in our mind, waiting for when the next thing is going to come that's going to push us down or keep us stuck. But when we have that end result in mind, when we have that vision for our life and how we want to feel, we can give ourselves the grace to move through grief. We can't predict how long it's going to take. We can't predict when we are going to feel joy or sorrow. But trust gets built in those moments. It is the trust that gets built within our grief that allows us to then be able to fully receive and witness the beauty that comes into our life. In this world, polarity is a universal law. We have up and down, left and right, masculine and feminine, order and chaos, hot and cold. So recognize that where there is death, there will be a rebirth. Winter and spring, that is a perfect example. So start getting curious about what is ready to disappear, to wither away, and honor that that is the end of that belief or that identity's life cycle. And that you can also hold the rebirth that awaits you on the other side. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. As always, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review if this resonated with you. Also, be sure to follow my socials down below. I will see you all in the next episode.